on Welcome to today's webinar on youth catalysing movements. I'll be chairing the webinar today. My name is Robson. I'm a key organiser for UKY4N, the UK's leading youth movement calling for urgent action on the nature crisis. And we're lucky enough to be joined by three incredibly talented speakers today. So I'm going to introduce each of the speakers and then they'll each take turns after I've introduced everyone to talk about their movement. So one of our first speakers is Naraya Shoro. She is Head of Content and Operations at Earth Minutes, a youth-led collective of researchers and creatives specialising in environmental communications. Prior to joining Earth Minutes, Naraya worked both within the advertising industry as an EMEA Corporate Development Associate at Wunderman Thompson, now via Mel, and within the environmental charity sector as a Corporate Partnerships Development Executive at WWF UK. With a passion for climate and social justice, Naraya represents a new generation dedicating their careers to tackling environmental and social justice issues. We're also joined by Josh Shaw from GYBN UK. Josh is a master's student at Nottingham Trent University studying endangered species recovery with a focus on forest ecosystems. In his spare time, he's involved with the BTO as a youth representative and is the media lead for the Global Youth Biodiversity Network UK, also known as GYBN UK. And last but by no means least, we're joined by Katie Thompson from Ancient Woodlands UK. Katie is an environmental storyteller and educator. She works in community woodland engagement, focusing on youth and wellbeing. She is a co-founder of Ancient Woodlands UK, along with UC Group Watson. So each of the speakers is going to take turns in introducing their movement. Naraya, would you like to go first with your presentation?
Yes, absolutely. So hi everyone, my name is Nuria, and I am the head of content operations at Earth Minutes, as Robson very kindly introduced me, and I'm really excited to be speaking to you guys a little bit about my role in Earth Minutes, how Earth Minutes came about, and what we get up to at Earth Minutes. So Earth Minutes is an environmental communications company on a mission to reconnect people to the planet through engaging, sustainable and accessible communications. So as you heard from the introduction, I've done a bunch of different things, and I thought I'd just start by explaining a little bit about myself, how on earth I ended up working in environmental communications. I like to call my career a squiggly one. It began not in the environmental space at all. It began in the advertising industry, which seems incredibly far-fetched from the environmental sector. I worked there for 2 years and I was working with senior leadership. I was helping with new business. I was helping run the Europe, Middle East and Africa region, which makes me sound much more serious than it was. I was an assistant and I was helping out. And after 2 years of working in a very creative industry and one that I really thought I would belong in because of my creativity, I realized that I was severely lacking purpose in my role and in my job. So I looked towards the environmental sector and I ended up working for WWF. I spent about a year and a bit at WWF. I transferred my skills over from the corporate world and worked in corporate partnerships. And after about a year of doing that, I loved working within the environmental sector and I met so many incredible people. But I realized I was lacking the creative side. So I felt like I sort of had given up the creative side for the purpose-led side. And now I'm working with Earth Minutes doing environmental communications. And I'll explain a little bit later about how the creative and the purpose-led really come together at Earth Minutes. And my general interests, I like to showcase this because I think people are so much more than just their career paths and their education paths. But I obviously am very passionate about social environmental justice. I love content creation. So I love photography. I love social media. Sometimes a little bit too addicted, but I love creating things. I love painting. And I'm also really interested in mental health and well-being and the intersections that well-being and nature have with one another. So a little bit more about Earth Minutes and what we are. We're an environmental communications company, as I've mentioned. We're youth-led. So this is our lovely sort of broader team. And when I say environmental communications, we help organizations that are environmentally focused communicate around their projects, their research, and their messages. So we do this through a bunch of different services. We do film production, we do social media creation, digital experiences. So we create web pages and sort of 360 innovative, immersive experiences where we kind of throw people into the sea via their laptops. We run events. So we just hosted the Youth Summit at London Climate Action Week this year. And we also do a bit of consulting as well, so helping organizations to understand how they can challenge their communications to really elevate them and bring them to life. And we want to, the ultimate main mission that we have as a business is to reconnect people to nature through engaging, inclusive, and sustainable comms. So that's the real heart of why we do what we do. And I thought I'd share a little bit about our founder, Emma's story, and why she sort of created Earth Minutes and how she got into it. So Emma was she's based in Devon, and she has always been connected to nature. But when she was about 16, she started realizing that there was the climate crisis, and she wanted to reconnect sort of to her local area. She joined her local Services Against Sewage community. She then went to university and pursued geography. And after doing geography, she ended up specializing in soil science. She became really interested with the role that soil has in the climate crisis. And she wanted to study the connection between the climate crisis and soil carbon. And while she was doing this research with an incredible team, she asked them around how they're communicating this really important information and really critical research and very under-researched topic around the importance of soil within the climate crisis. And they said, essentially, they weren't sharing it. And that really sparked a thought in her. Why aren't these incredible organizations doing really important work sharing their research with the wider public or with local communities to help people understand the links between something as critical as soil that we walk on every day to the climate crisis? And she basically realized that it wasn't because they didn't want to communicate these topics. The scientists didn't know how to. So they didn't know how to cut through the lingo. They didn't know how to cut through the noise. They didn't know how to translate their research into something that would be really appealing to a wider audience and to potentially people who are interested in environment but don't have that technical background. And so at the age of 22, she started Earth Minutes, and we are now a core team of 3, and obviously you saw earlier our wider team of freelancers, but we've been running for about 6 years now. And we have Emma as the founder, myself, and the wonderful Amelia as projects and partnerships as well. So that's where we are today. In terms of the 4 sort of key ambitions that we have, we want to operate differently to other communications companies. We really value the role of underrepresented communities, particularly the youth voice. And as we've seen from the ICJ ruling yesterday, the power of youth is so critical in this climate movement. There are so many initiatives run by young people, including UK4N, Earth Minutes, and some of the others that we're going to come on to later, that are really driving key change across the globe, whether it's like globally, nationally, or locally. So what we want to do through our communications is to amplify those voices. And we've done that in a couple of spaces. We've been present at COP 27, 28, and 29. But for the past 2 COPs, we've been working with the Children and Youth Pavilion to amplify young leaders on the ground. We've been working with the National Education Nature Parks programme as well to amplify their young people that have been involved in the programme. We've run a couple of youth events. So as I mentioned, the Youth Summit in London Climate Action Week, and we've also run a youth summit at the Eden Project as well, which you can see pictured here. And we have a Friends of Earth Minutes network where we tap into young creatives who are leading the way in environmental communications, and we bring them into our client work where possible, because we really feel that the youth voice needs to be amplified and shared. Then we also work on digital innovation projects. So we know that we're working in a digital age. Everything is ever changing. And so we want to be able to keep up with that, and not only keep up with that, but innovate and really think about how can we create true on-the-ground impact offline through online mediums. So here's an example of our digital ocean school that we did with Surfers Against Sewage, where we basically plonk a bunch of school students in the UK on the shores of Cornwall, and they can roam around. As you can see, they can go underwater, they can see seagrass, and they can learn more facts around their oceans to try and reconnect them back to the ocean. So we also use VR as well, and we really try and tap into that, especially with the younger kids, because they're really sort of already tapping into this technology. So we want to meet them where they are and really connect them back to their natural spaces. All of our work is rooted in science. This is a really key point that we like to drive home. There's so much misinformation, disinformation when it comes to environmental research, environmental communication. So we really want to make sure that everything we do is rooted in science. And we work with some of the leading experts at the University of Exeter, National Oceanography Centre. We work with them on sort of sharing their latest research and the work that they're doing to try and connect people, so that they don't just see them as, oh, the boring scientists in the corner doing the work. They see them as really crucial and critical in the climate movement. And then finally, we work on mobilizing the next generation. So we have our Generation Earth Minutes program, which is all about mobilizing and supporting the next generation of environmental communicators. And as part of that program, we ask young people within the cohort to really reconnect back to nature and to think about, that's the first stage of the program, is to think about your connection to nature and how that can weave through all your messaging and everything that you communicate, because ultimately there's a Bubba Doom quote that I'm going to completely screw up now, but it's, you need to understand what you love to connect to it, to protect it. And so essentially we are trying to get people to really understand the root of their nature connection, and getting young people to really think about that before they go into the world and start communicating, because we feel like there's sometimes a bit of a lack and people end up communicating without really thinking about their own connection to nature. We are all nature, and we all need to really think about where that connection hones in, and that will help us communicate our messages better, more effectively, more emotionally, and it will resonate with more people. So that's just a brief overview of what we do. And the biggest thing from all of it is the power of young people. I mean, all of us here today are part of youth-led movements and initiatives, and it's something that we really value at Earth Minutes, through what we do, whether it's through mobilizing the next generation, working with current young people who want to communicate around their sort of nature initiatives and climate initiatives. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I'm excited to answer a couple of questions afterwards, and excited to hear about the other youth-led initiatives that we've got going on.
Thank you so much, Nuria. That was really interesting. I can't wait to ask you more later on. Josh, would you like to go next?
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, that should be working. So yeah, so I'm from the Global Youth Biodiversity Network UK chapter. That's a small selection of our team you can see there, as we've never as a full team managed to meet in person, but we're definitely hoping to get there at one point. So I will start off with a little bit about myself. I am the media lead for GYBN UK, so I run and create the social media. But as a team, we kind of all share the responsibilities. So I work on all the projects that we're working on as a team. As was introduced, I'm just come to the end of my master's now in endangered species recovery at Nottingham Uni, and focusing on woodland ecosystems. And I'm based up in North Yorkshire. So the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, as in the name, is a global network of young people, and it is the officially recognised participation platform for young people in the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, which I will explain a little more on. It was founded in 2010, and it really does cover the globe. It's got 62 chapters, so these are the national chapters around the world, although I think it's definitely increased by now. And overall, about 1.25 million young people are represented within this across 172 countries. So it's a very big network of people. Within Europe, we have Austria, France, the Nordics, and Italy have their chapters. And the latest one was the UK chapter, which we formed just last year. So with the Global Youth Biodiversity Network UK, or GYBN UK as it's known, our mission is to empower, enable, and unite youth across the UK, and to build a coalition of young people and organisations across the 4 countries, which is England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and to inspire young leaders to be young people to be leaders for nature, but particularly within the policy and decision-making processes where young people are very often left out of. So going back a little bit, the Convention on Biological Diversity. This is a United Nations convention, which is an agreement between 196 countries regarding biodiversity, which meet every 2 years for a COP, unlike the climate COPs that were mentioned. These are the biodiversity COPs, and these are every 2 years. And the parties or the countries that are involved are required to create and enforce national strategies to achieve these goals and agreements. And essentially, GYBN works with the countries to ensure that these goals and agreements are really what we want to achieve and that they are sticking to them as well. You can see from the map there that there are 196 countries. So that's pretty much everywhere except from the United States. So yes, but still lots of good work is taking place, and parties are currently working towards the 10-year plan, which finishes in 2030. And this is the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And this has 23 goals for 2030 and then a vision for 2050. And you might have heard of some of these goals. So target number 3 is referred to as 30 by 30, and this is about protecting 30% of land and the sea efficiently for conservation and nature by 2030. This is a big one that countries are working to at the moment. And then another really key one is target number 14, which is about integrating biodiversity in decision-making at every level, not just within the environmental sector, but making sure that the planning departments and all of these other departments are actually thinking about biodiversity in their goals, which I think is particularly relevant at the moment. And so youth are really engaged in the CBD, which is the Convention on Biological Diversity. Young people attend these COPs, so the Global Youth Biodiversity Network kind of engage all the young people. We are a major stakeholder, which means that we have official seats at the table. We are allowed to partake in these discussions and provide opinions. So young people can provide interventions, which is where we speak up in front of the world. We can lobby countries to try and persuade them to think about what young people want and also be more ambitious. We track the negotiations to make sure everyone is aware of what's going on. Young people hold press conferences, hold side events, and their youth spaces like at the Climate COP. So it really is impressive work that's taking place from young people across the globe. And 5 of us were lucky enough to attend COP16, which happened in Colombia back in October. And we ran social media campaigns to ensure that young people knew what was going on. We ran our own side events and spoke on others' panels. We met with young people from across the globe who are all working towards the same thing. We partook in Colombian media, and also the Wildlife Trust were there. We partook in their media and met with ministers who are out there as well to try and build this youth perspective into their work as well. And so around this time, we were also working on the UK Youth Priorities, which is really about trying to understand what young people want to see for the future of nature. And we ran some online workshops and had an online form as well, where young people could tell us what they really want to see for the future of nature. And we kind of translated this into 8 key priority areas to take with us to show the ministers what young people are thinking about at the moment. And these priority areas, we are aware that lots of organisations are already working towards this. So valuing nature in land use and decision making, conservation and restoration, about having a global impact and think about our collaboration with other countries, making sure there's diversity and inclusion within the conservation sector, transformative education and capacity building for young people, and ensuring there's employment available, having meaningful youth participation, not just sat at the table but not being listened to, mental health and well-being, and also social justice and rights-based approaches for these. So that was our first year, so we got up to quite a lot. And if you want to see a bit more about what we did in our first year, we've got our report online that's available. But now we're really wanting to take it to the next step. So the first youth priorities had about 70 young people taking part. We now really want to scale this up to the national level, and we are currently planning the national consultation, which will be led by youth organisations and young people across the countries to gather their perspectives, which will be translated into meaningful policy targets for the UK government. We're currently at the stage of designing the questionnaire, which will be going out in a month or two, and then we're hoping with funding to be able to run workshops around the 4 countries to hopefully get 1,000 young people's voices all together to try and work out, what does everyone want, and then we'll take this to government. There are a few ways to get involved, or will be ways to get involved when it's available. Young people like yourselves will be able to run consultations and gather their views from the people around you. We'd definitely like everyone to spread the word about this so that we can get as many different perspectives as possible. We want to hear from people that don't know anything about nature to those who know everything about nature. So we really want to make sure that everyone's involved. We do have a mailing list on our website, which will be where we advertise some of these opportunities, and definitely on social media as well. I'd also really recommend checking out our Knowledge Hub, which is on our website. And this is where we have a hub of resources which relate to biodiversity policy and decision making. We're very much aware that it can be very difficult to understand all the different policies that are taking place. There are some fantastic documents on there which were created by young people, such as CBD in a nutshell, and that explains the entire convention and how the global policy really works its way down to national level policy as well. And from this last year of helping to create this organisation, we've definitely experienced some, different trials and errors. And so these are my top tips for youth-led movements. I'll definitely say that you may face people that don't take your organisation seriously, being young people, but definitely try not to let it affect you and use it as empowerment to continue building young people up. We definitely found at COP16, we were definitely ignored by certain people because of our age. I'd also say don't be afraid to just ask for things, whether this is free attendance, financial support, collaboration, or more, because the worst that someone can say is no. We asked people to pay for us to go to the United Nations Convention, and we all managed to successfully get that. So nothing came out of our own pockets. Definitely surround yourself with a good team. I'm sure everyone here can vouch for that, and it seems like everyone here has great teams. And collaborate with other organisations where possible, which is something that we're really starting to build upon at the moment. I'll definitely be speaking to all the rest of you guys after this. And again, take breaks, because starting these sort of movements or continuing these movements, it's very tiring. Prioritize your mental health and look for the positives that are taking place when there is a lot going wrong as well. And I will leave you with this photo of many of the young people that managed to attend COP16 from around the world that are all working towards this fantastic group. And a quote that I'm quite proud of coming up with, which is youth can do it. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh, and I can't wait to dive into that. And I must say, very good slogan. That is genius. Katie, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I think Helen's going to share for me. Brilliant, yeah. Hi everyone. 2 tough acts to follow, but we are definitely a smaller campaign, I think, than both campaigns that have gone. But yeah, we're called Ancient Woodlands UK. We're a youth campaign. We began as a Igniting Innovation Woodland Trust Youth Challenge pitch. Me and Lucy hadn't met before that. We met because I pitched to become a wildlife filmmaker, and she pitched for a Save Our Ancient Woodlands campaign, and I needed a project to make a film for, and she needed a filmer. So we got partnered up, and since then we've developed more the whole campaign together, really. Been working as a team. We've had lots of other people come along for the ride, and at one point there was even like 4 of us, really working quite hard. So yeah, there's loads of bits and bobs that have been going on. Would you mind doing the next slide? So we began, the idea originally was that we were going to do a petition online that would get 10,000 signatures, which means that the government have to hear you out about what you want to talk about. But then when we started getting signatures, we realised they're actually very difficult to get. And we weren't really getting anywhere close to 10,000. So since then, we have kind of evolved and become quite a lot of an educational campaign as well. So we do quite a lot on Instagram. Recently, in the past few months, we've noticed that after 2 years of like hard work, we have now started to really see our following start to go up organically, which has been really rewarding to see those like few years come to fruition more recently. And a lot of the work that we do on Instagram is like really collaborative, so having other young creators and ourselves being young creators, creating reels or informative posts all about ancient woodlands, why we should save them, why they're threatened, basically just trying to educate people in any way possible. We've also worked with a small business called Lucy Pickett Designs and Illustrations, and she does lots of woodland art and pet portraits and things like that, so we've done like a giveaway with her before. And yeah, everything we're doing really is building that community of young people who care about ancient woodlands so that we can educate more people. Since we did the petition online, we do still have it up and running, but our main goal these days is, once we realise the complexity of the law, because I think before this neither of us had we're not lawyers, like neither of us had particularly done much apart from grassroots sort of petitioning. We realised there was lots of other ways apart from having this one specific petition to feed into politics, like to meet with politicians and to make an impact as young people. So what we've decided now to do is work directly with stakeholders, and we're working towards developing a legal bill. The idea is that we can feed in to a lot of different policies through the years. So whether that's planning policies, whether that's the 30 by 30, whether that's trying to create grants for farmers, all these different things that go on in politics, we're hoping to feed into. And the aim is that we'll have a full legal bill that will protect ancient woodlands, that is like our goal. That is what we wish will happen. But in the meanwhile, because that could take a while, we want to feed in through lots of other avenues, influencing other policies, and just making sure that basically ancient woodlands are being heard in every single room when it comes to conservation or protection, because they're often left out of the conversation entirely. Ready for the next slide? So, saving our ancient woodlands, I thought I'll go through a little bit of what is an ancient woodland, because this is really, it gives a bit more context to like why the campaign has developed how it has. So ancient woodlands are any habitat that has existed since 1600s in England or 1750s in Scotland. Wales and Northern Ireland are the same as England. And basically the only reason that they've chose these years is because that's when we have reliable maps back to. So actually most ancient woodlands will be centuries and centuries old, probably even thousands of years old, to be honest. They are some of our richest and most complex terrestrial habitats in the UK. So the complexity and biodiversity that you see in them is second to none for habitats in the UK. I think if anybody has been in one, or you've unknowingly been in one, you've probably felt just how alive they are, from the ground all the way to the top. You've got mosses, ferns, old trees, new trees. You've got like a brush layer with holly, where all the birds are singing in, all the way up to the oldest trees that have lots of living organisms like lichens or mosses hanging down from them. They also include temperate rainforests, which are really big at the moment. So although not all temperate rainforests are ancient woodlands, most of them do tend to be, and they're just a really special habitat. They are home to many threatened species. So as I'm saying, they've evolved for absolutely thousands of years. And this just means that they create proper niches that certain animals can only live in and certain plants can only live in. So there's things like wood sorrel or bluebells that are really specialist to ancient woodlands. You also have the hazel dormice, which is a really cute small mammal that basically only lives in hazel ancient woodlands, or ancient woodlands that at least have some hazel in for them to live by, as the name suggests. And I think one of the things that we realise people also need to connect to ancient woodlands is for those people who aren't like us on this call and are not obsessed with nature. we need that the history and the heritage that needs to really be pushed. That connection of like our ancestors living in this land. This would have been naturally, you know, back thousands of years before people really started with agriculture. England was likely 60-70% wooded, and the rest of the UK probably very similar too. So these are probably the last remnants of our original habitat and environment that was in England and the rest of the UK too. And I just think it's so important to hold on to it for historical reasons too. You know, listed buildings have full protection a lot of the time and are cared for, but ancient woodlands are not respected in the same way. They also provide a really brilliant natural flood management because of all the different plants that exist there, and because of the complexity of the soil and the roots and the way that they form naturally. They hold on to water really, really well, and this can impact then in towns and cities that are much further downstream. And these days, I think it's a really good sell, that one, when it comes to anyone in corporate or insurance or anyone who, again, might not have that connection to nature. This is a way to show them how nature benefits them. And it's just got such, yeah, it's just, I can't go on long enough about them, so I will stop there. But they're such a good quality green space, and I really would urge you to get out on your local ancient woodland whenever you can. Ready for the next one, please. So how can we improve protections for ancient woodlands? As I say, we've evolved with our campaign from being government needs to listen to us, you know, in a one-off talk through a petition, to now looking at all those little ways we can feed in through the legal protection. But we're also looking then for public awareness and education. Like I just said, we've really been pushing having an Instagram community and just raising awareness for what ancient woodlands actually are. Before I got matched with Lucy, I was not aware what an ancient woodland is, and I really love nature and I really like woods. So if I didn't know what it was in that state, then I just wonder how many other young people aren't aware either. We also think that engagement and land management and advice could be a really good strategy that we're looking for the future. So there might be potential for us to be able to help other people manage their ancient woodlands, not just in the way that we want ancient woodlands to stop being cut down, but also how can we improve them? How can we support people who own ancient woodlands to care for them better or restore them back to their former glory? I'm ready for the next slide. I think that's all of it. But I'll do a little bit more about I guess just being a youth movement inspired by the other ones. I think I completely agree that if you do want to start something, first of all, just go for it. Like I say, I wasn't even aware what an ancient woodland was until I was connected to Lucy, and Lucy hadn't done much content production before and now does a lot. And I think having a good team is also really important. Everybody's perspective is unique, and that was something that when I got told it, I really appreciated, because I think sometimes as young people we can think that our opinions are lesser because we haven't got the experience or the education, or you might think that you don't have the right skill set, or why is it your voice that matters? But as you can see today from like all the different brilliant people who have talked, everybody has a unique perspective and everyone learns, and sharing your passion will never be a waste. Your input is always valid and is always worth it and inspiring for other people. So if you've got something that you're passionate about, just find a team who can do it with you. Make sure you're not doing it alone, because it's really hard work. And just crack on with it. And yeah, like the other guys have said, connecting up with other youth organisations is great too. A really nice connection that you can support each other through different campaigns that you do, and yeah, all your successes.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Katie. And that's really great to hear your advice and tips for other people in a similar position. I guess just to kick off the Q&A, a question I maybe wanted to pose to you all was sort of, it can feel quite overwhelming when you're working in the nature space. There feels like there's so many ever moving targets, and it feels like, you know, you need to sort of solve everything to kind of have got where you're going. And I guess a question I want to ask is, how do you define success in your work, or how do you make that feel more manageable, given that it can feel like, so that's a very big question to start off with, but how do you kind of break that down from saving the whole world to kind of achievable goals, and actually those sort of small steps to build up to your bigger goals? I don't know if anyone particularly wanted to kick off or had any thoughts off the top of their heads?
Yeah, I'm happy to go with
Yeah.
that. I think it's all about, taking those small steps. I mean, first of all, our first success was getting a team together. That was a huge success in the first place. And then, your kind of the way you build changes. So at first we had to work together, figure out what we were going to do as a team, and then we kind of came up with the idea of we wanted to do this small consultation project. We achieved that. That was a great success. So I think it's all about kind of, you work towards one thing, then you achieve the next, and it just kind of gradually evolves rather than, having this gigantic goal of saving the world. And even just engaging young people, we're never going to engage every single young person in the country, but it's about every person you're engaging, that is a success. So really breaking it down into smaller goals.
Definitely. And just making it, as you say, it's once you achieve one of those smaller goals, then the next one's more achievable and you can work up to those bigger overarching goals. I don't know if Katie or Nuria had anything else to add to that at all.
Yeah, for me, a lot of the successes I celebrate is through community. Just through working in your local community and working with local people, working with a specific group of people. Like most of us work with young people, so I really think those connections and chatting with people one-on-one and remembering to step back and celebrate that one person's life that you have impacted, and I'm always thinking of the butterfly effect, that they will, talk to their friends, and then their friends will be inspired too. So, yeah, thinking small is so important when you work in a sector.
Definitely, definitely. And just as you say, that building of a community in itself is such an achievement and something to be really proud of. Nuria, did you want to come in as well?
have nothing to add. I feel like that was perfect because I was going to say something similar around community and your own networks and the ripple effect of making, even if it's a really small change. I think celebrating with community, reflecting with the community, it's that really kind of keeps my motivation going. I know it keeps the team's motivation going. But yeah, it's like that ripple. You were saying the butterfly effect. It's like the ripple effect. So yeah.
And that actually leads on really nicely to a question we've had submitted by someone, and it's what has been one of your favourite moments of working with young people specifically? Obviously, you all work in organisations that empower young people, but I guess has there been a standout favourite moment for each of you as part of that?
Yeah, I can come in here because I feel like the standout moments have been where community have just had the vibes. So it became this running joke at the recent youth summit that we had, that I basically set the tone at 9 a.m. in the morning and told everyone we've got to have vibes. Like that is what we need to bring here because we are young people. That is what we do. We're fresh, we're energetic, we're innovative. Like let's just bring it. And I think the spaces which have been the most sort of like my favorite spaces have been the ones where young people have all come together with so many different thoughts, so many different ideas, so much care for one another as well. And they're all mobilized around one goal or one action. And I think that's really special to really share that and to meet other people and be in the space with other people. We all feed off each other's energies. So I think those spaces have been my favorites and have definitely helped, kind of leading back to the last question, of help define success as well, because when you come back from those spaces you're like, oh yes, like I want to do that again, like that was incredible. We're making serious change here. Like it's very special.
Yeah, and I think there's something really rewarding in creating a space where not just you feel welcome, but then other people are able to feel welcome, and it's sort of as like giving back what you wish you had when you were at that stage is such a rewarding moment. I don't know, Josh, did you have a favourite moment of working with young people so far as part of GYBN UK?
I think it's more general, just when I've worked, with young people in general and through these workshops and online, just hearing everybody's ideas and hearing how amazing the ideas are that young people can actually come up with, and just sort of thinking, gosh, why aren't these actually implemented? But yeah, I think my favorite moment is just hearing all these amazing and different perspectives as well.
Definitely. And Katie, did you have a favourite moment at all as part of your work with Ancient Woodlands UK?
Yeah, I think we did a stakeholder meeting last year, and I think it was really nice because I think kind of like what Josh has said, sometimes when it's a youth movement, people don't want to take you seriously or don't want to allow you space or allow you to be in that room. But since that stakeholder meeting, we had quite a lot of people from like quite high stakeholders from different organisations turn up, and since then we've had like routine contact from some of those two who are older, and they really are trying to empower us to have an impact in the room and inviting us to events and things like that now. So I think that really has inspired me, because it's more for us as young people, and our ambassadors are being invited places now, which feels really good. That people who are older are holding that space for us and being really positive and impactful in that way. And it just took us inviting them and extending that olive branch. I think it went more positively than we could have ever anticipated.
Yeah, and I think that's something that also represents kind of the reason why it's so important to have these youth-led movements, is the fact that you're getting youth voices heard and platformed, and then you do get these positive stories where it's like, you know, you get to host an event as part of London Climate Action Week, for example, or you have a stakeholder meeting that goes well and leads to an ongoing relationship. And I think those positive news moments really kind of keep you when you sort of know you're on the right track. And I guess obviously it is really great to have had all of those successes and positive moments, but has there been any particularly challenging aspects of developing your movement, or moments that have perhaps, you know, because you're a youth-led movement, it's been a bit more challenging than perhaps you'd have expected it to be? I don't know if there's any barriers you've come across you would like to kind of share your experiences of.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump off what Katie was saying around when you're young people, older generations don't take you very seriously. We always try and challenge that, and we always try and question that, but it can be really intimidating as a young person to walk into a room of stakeholders that don't look like you. They have far more kind of experience in terms of years. And you know that what you're driving and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to mobilize is awesome. It's just you have to convince all these older people who don't quite get it. And I think that can be really challenging to face, and can be quite scary and quite daunting. And it's very exciting when, like, for example, with Katie's sort of meetings where people do jump on board and they are really excited by what you're doing and they can help to mobilize change. I really think we need intergenerational change. And young people are really critical in that. I just think it can be such a barrier. I know we've definitely faced it at Earth Minutes, where we've, you know, as a young team, especially as a young team of women, have been undermined or have been sort of questioned in what we're doing in a way that if it was a male-led business where the founder was, you know, in their 40s or 50s, it wouldn't have been challenged. So yeah, that's definitely one barrier that we face as youth-led movements.
Yeah, and I think it kind of highlights the importance of, you know, checking in with your mental health and kind of giving yourself that space and those breaks from, obviously you do want to work really hard for your movement, but also taking those moments to kind of reflect and sort of take a moment for yourself are really important. I don't know if Josh or Katie, you had any other challenges you faced you just sort of wanted to feed in?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that. So I think very much agree with the fact, like as I mentioned in the presentation, so some people not taking you seriously. We have also experienced some other people that, you know, have really welcomed us into their spaces as well. But also time and financial barriers is a big thing for young people. All of our work is completely volunteer led. We have no funding as well. So when we have been invited to certain events, we have had to say, well, unless you're willing to pay for our travel, unless you're willing to pay for our attendance, then we are unable to join you. And quite often they have agreed to do that, which has been, you know, positive experiences. But for young people across the country, time and financial barriers is definitely a big one.
Definitely. And I think also it comes back to knowing how much you can give, and also just being conscious that, you know, particularly if you're part of a voluntary movement, knowing the fact of you're not going to be able to perhaps jump at every single opportunity, but making the most of the ones you have been able to access. Katie, did you want to feed in at all on that question?
I think I just agree with both prior answers. They were our main challenges that we faced too.
Yeah. And I guess something that a lot of young people perhaps listening to this webinar might be thinking is they'd love to start their own movement, but they are obviously conscious of those barriers. And I just wondered if you had any advice for other people who maybe would be looking to be in a similar situation to you of being part of a youth-led movement, and any advice you'd give them to kind of look after themselves in that process, because obviously it can be quite a lot on you as a person to be sort of the driving force behind a movement. So I just wondered if you had any sort of personal reflections or sort of things you do to make sure your mental health is looked after in something that can be quite taxing emotionally. Sorry, that was a big question. So I'm aware people might need a minute to think about that, but if anyone wants to feed in on that one. I don't know. Josh, did you have something you wanted to add on that one, perhaps?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, definitely taking breaks is a big one. Also, going back to the success, not expecting to change the world, working step by step. You're also probably not going to have a clear idea of the direction your movement is going to go right from the beginning, and that is absolutely fine. As long as you kind of have an idea of which area you're trying to work in, and then it will develop over time. So not setting the goals too big, essentially, and not being sad if the goal isn't achieved as quick as you hoped it is. I think, it's definitely an evolving space. There's so much going on. Everything's constantly changing. So nothing's going to happen overnight. And I definitely recommend a lot of movements start on social media. That is definitely the place to start building these communities and connecting with other communities that already exist as well.
Definitely. And I think being able to sort of ask those other movements for advice and those other communities. And I found something that's really nice about being a young person in the climate and nature space is that everyone is so supportive and genuinely does want to, share their advice or their guidance or opportunities. And I think that's definitely something people can leverage. Nuria, did you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I was going to say exactly that around finding communities. I've met so many incredible young people within this space, within the nature space, within the climate space, who are running incredible sort of communities to bring people together in ways that are outside of their initiatives, just to get like brains ticking and like hands in soil and to reconnect us back to why we're doing what we're doing, whether it's a passion for nature, whether it's protecting key species, whether it's protecting local habitats, whether it's, combating climate crisis, whatever your reason is. I think reconnecting to why you're doing what you're doing is what gets you through. And I think not only that, but really valuing yourself in it as well, and really understanding your role in what you're doing. I think especially with voluntary sort of initiatives, I think it's really easy to get swept away by the possibility of what we can do together. And there's so much possibility, there's so much hope, there's so much optimism, but also that can lead to so much burnout as well if you kind of lose sight of why you're doing what you're doing. So I think really valuing your role in it, valuing the roles of other people and the connections that you can build in this space, and reflecting and working and collaborating together. And if there's something that you don't know how to do, there will be someone that does. And that, Katie was saying that around like honing in on different skills. You don't have to be able to do it all. You can find people who are in the space who are working on similar things, who might want to help you out, who might be able to offer a skill or a piece of advice to help you on your way. So yeah, I think bringing it back to why you're doing what you're doing, valuing yourself and tapping into networks and community is really, really crucial to make sure that you don't burn out, and that, you're doing it in the most effective way that you can whilst looking after yourself.
Definitely. And then I guess a follow-up question we've had is, Is there anything you think as the youth movement collectively across different movements and organisations that we can be doing to better support each other's work? Or I know you mentioned kind of that everyone's quite willing to help, something that we're doing quite well already.
It's a good question.
That's a
I
good
think-
question. Yeah, sorry, I'm aware I'm putting you on the spot here with quite a deep question.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people. I think with young people, I think it's kind of similar to my last point, is as young people, we are trying to fight for a seat at the table. So we're having to show up in ways that we don't really know how to show up, and we're trying to do it all. And I think it can become quite, not gatekeepy, but I think people are quite protective of their initiatives, of their movements. They're so passionate about what they're doing. And I think opening doors and allowing for that collaboration, and to make sure it benefits, both sides, like I think that can really bolster our movement, and it can make us so much stronger. And I think we're seeing so much more of that over the past couple of years. I think, like, even just from the growth of like Gibbon, for example, and then intergenerationally through ancient Woodlands UK, like we're seeing that people are opening their doors and they're more willing to work together on things rather than sort of keep it to themselves. And also sometimes we find that especially with communications, there are people doing it way better than us, and it's about how can we learn from them, work with them rather than compete with them. It's not a competition. We're all trying to do the same thing. So I think just keeping doors open and really tapping into the network when there's things that you don't know how to do, or when someone's doing something really cool and you just want to get on board. I think not being afraid of that. It's very anti-capitalist mindset that we've been taught around. We must be the best at everything and our organization must be the best. And actually, if we all work together, just think about the power that we can hold. So yeah.
And as you say, we're all working towards the same thing, and actually there is so much more benefit in exchanging knowledge as opposed to gatekeeping it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Josh, I don't know if you had anything to add on that point about ways that different youth movements can collectively support each other, or things we're doing well that we should continue doing.
I think we can definitely take a page out of some of the larger organisations' book, such as they have the Wildlife and Countryside Link, which is this big coalition of, I think, almost 90 of the biggest conservation organisations, and whether young people can kind of form this coalition to provide large statements representing more young people, more different perspectives from across a range of sectors within the environment, that will, give a range of different perspectives, and adding all of this into one larger statement rather than kind of us all trying to talk to government separately.
Definitely. And I think there's so much, I think that you've really kind of hit it on the head there. Like, as a collective, as opposed to just individual voices, actually together, there are so many of us that can be working together and kind of supporting each other and uplifting each other and really amplifying this united message. Unfortunately, we've lost Katie. I think she had to go, her connection wasn't great. But I think as just something to round off, it's been a really, really insightful conversation. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your movements. And I think there's so many great talking points to come from this. I guess what is next for your movement, and where can we see you and how can we support that, and any sort of things coming up you'd like to promote or resources you'd like to share? I don't know which of you would like to go first.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So yeah, as I mentioned, the UK Youth's Priorities for Nature, that's definitely our big project that's coming up. That will be advertised on our social media when it's available. So definitely check out our social media, which is just GYBN UK. We're on Instagram, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn, and our website, which is just gybnuk.co.uk. You'll find all the information about our upcoming projects there too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Nuria, did you want to just share what's next for Earth Minutes?
Yeah, so we're now sort of planning the road to COP30, which is quite scary. It's come around really quickly. It's happening in November in Brazil, and it's set to be a very big climate conference. So that's sort of our next steps. We're thinking around environmental communication, the role that youth voices have within that, the role that they can play in the lead up to COP30 and then beyond as well, thinking around climate and nature action. And the other thing is, as I've mentioned a couple of times, because it was just such a cool event, we ran the Youth Summit at London Climate Action Week, which was so cool, that we're trying to think about like next steps for next year, and what that could look like. So those are the two things that are kind of top of mind. And then if you want to stay up to date with any of our sort of socials, we're on Instagram at Earth Minutes UK. We're on TikTok and LinkedIn and Blue Sky and YouTube. So we've got it going on everywhere. But yeah, if you want to stay in touch, also check out our website to see more of the kind of cool work that we do. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome.
Brilliant. And thank you so much. It sounds like there's so many exciting things going on with both GYBN UK and Earth Minutes. And I'm sure we can get Katie to send over some bits about Ancient Woodlands UK for when we circulate the webinar. But thank you very much to our wonderful speakers. And thank you so much to everyone that's listened in. And we hope you have a lovely evening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Shall we stay? Shall we go?
Yeah, I was just going to say a massive thank you. I was just going to be like, it's been really, like, just so many great things you've had to say. So just thank you so much.